All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Sergeant Eric Gripp, Philadelphia Police Department Public Affairs Unit, ERIC-GRIPP. We're out here tonight to talk about a officer-involved shooting which occurred approximately 6:45 p.m. tonight on the 1500 block here on Somerville Street. This began when 35th District officers attempted to pull over a blue Kia sedan. You can see over there right at the intersection of 15th and Somerville. The vehicle pulled over. This was a two-person police unit. Officers were in full uniform. They were quickly met by backup. Two RPCs, two 35th District police cars backed them up. So we had a total of 5 officers that were out here at the scene. The initiating officers went to approach the vehicle. There was 4 occupants inside of the vehicle. As the first 2 officers approached the vehicle, in the passenger side rear of the vehicle, they saw an individual male who was leaning back, and he quickly produced a gun and fired at least 1 round at the officers from inside the vehicle. The officers quickly backed up. The male exited from outside the vehicle and fired at least 1 more round towards the officers. At that point, 5 officers that were outside the vehicle discharged at the male multiple times. He was struck multiple times in the torso. That male was transported to Einstein Hospital right around the corner by police. And should mention that one of the backup officers, the officers that were in the 3rd car, which is no longer at the scene right now, that officer was shot in his left foot. He was transported by his partner over to Einstein Hospital, where he's currently in stable condition. The offender who fired at the officers, he is a 24-year-old black male. He was pronounced dead at 7 o'clock at Einstein Hospital. Right now, you can see this is a very active crime scene. The offender's weapon was recovered. It is still on location out there. And, we're very fortunate tonight that this wasn't worse. Commissioner Outlaw, city leadership are over at the hospital right now speaking with the officer and his family. And, this just speaks again to the level of gun violence that just continues to plague our city. I'll take any questions you have, but please keep in mind this is very early. It's early.
Why'd you pull the car over?
I don't have the information what the initial reason for the car stop was at this time.
What happened to the passengers and the people in the back of the car?
So there were 3 other individuals that were inside of the car with the male that was struck. They are with our investigators right now providing statements. They were uninjured.
Was there a woman also injured?
No, none of the other passengers were injured. At this time, I believe that there was inside the cars 3 males and 1 female. So right now we have a female and 2 males that are with our investigators right now providing a statement. They're adults. They're all adults.
So right now it's the man who has been killed and the officer who was shot in the foot, and those are the only people who suffered.
That have been struck. That's correct.
And you're not identifying the person that died?
No, not at this point. Not at this point. Like, so we know who he is. He has been identified. He's a 24-year-old black male.
Just talk about how dangerous the situation is when you have a man obviously walking out of a car firing at officers.
It sometimes people say that it's a cliche, but it's really not. Officers don't start their day wanting to get into a shooting, wanting to get into anything like this. Last thing we want to do is have to take a life. And again, it just speaks to the level of gun violence in the city. And these officers approached the car, and they were fired upon almost immediately.
How many officers fired shots? I'm sorry.
At least 5.
How many shots were fired?
We don't have that number right now. Multiple shots. Multiple shots were fired.
Officers?
So we had the initial car stop. Just so you know, today is what we call all squads night. So this is one of the nights where we have the highest amount of officers on the street. So these officers had fast backup, and it was thorough. It was 2 officers inside the initial car, and almost immediately they had a second car with 2 officers inside of it, and a 3rd car, which had we believe 2 officers inside of it. So there would be 6 officers on scene, 5 discharged. 5 discharged. The officer that was in the rear car, that was one who was struck in the foot, he was driven to the hospital by his partner. At this time, we do not believe that his partner discharged.
And you're not saying why the backup was called? Because obviously there was a 2-car unit that pulled it over and then backup immediately. So is that usual? Is that a usual?
Can't say at this time. We would only be speculating. But speaking as a police officer myself, whenever we hear somebody pull somebody over, if we're in the area, we're going to swing by just to see if we can provide any kind of backup. We know that was a 2-person car. But again, I would just be speculating as to now why those officers were able to arrive so
So
quickly.
that's not unusual to have two other backup cars coming on a two-car unit.
It's not unusual if the officers are in the area and if they're available. It depends on what's going on.
So they just responded maybe when they heard the call and then they were here at the scene.
Again, I'd be speculating, but that is possible, yes.
What kind of weapon was recovered?
It was a handgun. I don't have the caliber or any of that information at this time, but like I said, it is out on the scene right now, and it's being processed by our crime scene unit.
Was there anything found in the suspect's car that might have been illegal? Was that?
Nothing at this time. Again, I don't know the nature of the weapon, if the individual had the weapon, was allowed to carry it, or any of that information right now.
Officer Gripp, had they stopped other vehicles before that vehicle?
Don't have that information.
Was there a witness said after they heard the gunshots, an officer or a cop car was chasing someone on an ATV right down the street right after? Do you know anything about
I don't know anything about that. That's might be part of the investigation. Our investigators are out here right now, and we want to speak to any witnesses. And as always, anybody who saw anything, anybody who witnessed anything, we want to talk to you. We want to get to the bottom of everything that happened out here. So hopefully we'll have that information soon.
With video, obviously, cameras on homes.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we live in a digital age now. A lot of folks have cameras. They have Ring doorbells and other digital cameras of that sort. So there is a possibility. And the officers that were involved were wearing body cameras, so we'll be able to download information. I'm sorry?
Were they activated?
I don't have that information for sure, but those cameras are activated based off of sound. Right? They're constantly recording. They have a buffer period. So if they didn't hit record when it initially happened, at some point as the shooting was going on, those cameras would have been automatically activated.
Our cameras picked up some cars over at the hospital that also appeared to be shot up. Is that connected to this? Do we know?
So apparently there's a second homicide that occurred not too far from here at a distant time, or at a not too far away, and at a relatively close time. We're not sure if it was involved. We don't believe it is at this time. But it's something that we'll be looking
Is
into.
that the confrontation? There was a confrontation that we caught between officers and family members. Is that related?
Apparently there was an altercation at the hospital, which could have been involved with another homicide that had taken place around the same time.
And just a clerical thing. You said the guy started shooting from inside the car. Did he shoot through the window, or did he was his arm outside of the car?
I don't have that information. I know that at least one shot was fired while the male was still inside of the vehicle. The officers quickly retreated, and then he exited the vehicle and fired at least one more shot at them, and that's when the other officers
Is that the
fired.
one that hit him in the foot?
I'm sorry?
Is that the one that hit him in the foot? The one that he shot outside of the window?
At this time we can't say which of those shots hit that officer, or when that officer was struck. This was all in a very fast period of time, but they were all coming out of the
Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.